Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2 of the Rally Report podcast. I'm your host, Sean Choi, and with me today is world number 92 and CSA Individuals Finalist, Aly Abou Eleinen. What's going on, man? How are you?
How's it going, Sean? Thanks for having me.
How's your weekend been? Did you dress up for Halloween?
I actually didn't. I took the weekend off.
Took the weekend off?
Yeah, I came here to see my brother in the suburbs. He lives in the suburbs here in Philly, so got a chance to spend the weekend with him, which has been nice.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little.
Do you train in the weekends usually, or no? Not really.
Well, it depends on what we have coming up. You know, if I have a tournament coming up, I usually train on the weekends. If I don't, sometimes I take it off. We have scrimmages next weekend. We've been training pretty hard at Penn, so I took the weekend off just to give my body a little time off. You know?
Yeah. So Ali, paint the picture for me here. When did you move to the States? And I'm curious if this was always the intended plan, because I know your brother also came to Brooks at a young age and then went to Harvard after.
Yeah, I moved to the States when I was 15. Went to boarding school at Brooks. So initially, you know, right around the revolution in Egypt in 2011, things were a little uncertain, and you know, we weren't sure what the future was going to be like in Egypt. And my brother got an opportunity to move to the U.S. and you know, he had an unreal experience at Brooks. Went on to play at Harvard, so that alone was just an incredible experience for my brother. And you know, I saw that and wanted to follow his footsteps. And, you know, education for me and my family was always a priority. So just to be able to do that here in the U.S. and also train, you know, at a high level as well it was the plan.
So I've seen you play from a young age, but I don't think your name was big in the World Junior stage. I really hadn't seen you in any big tournaments. Was there a specific reason to that? Or because I always thought you were up there and you should be playing in those tournaments? Or is there some dirty politics going on?
Not dirty politics. Where I was, you know, living in the U.S., to play like the British Open or to play the World Junior Open, you have to be top 5 in Egypt ranked nationally. And to do that, you have to be in Egypt playing tournaments. So I was usually in the U.S. at boarding school playing, you know, the high school league, so I didn't really get the chance to play those tournaments. But the one big tournament that I played every year was the U.S. Open. That was usually the big tournament that I would play.
Which you won.
I won in U19s, right?
Yeah.
And my goal, the goal for me was to, you know, stay fit, keep my squash good, and you know, get into like a really good college that has both good academics but also good squash.
Did you ever regret it? Because when you see these your fellow peers, you know, making these jumps, and obviously I'm sure you're a competitive guy, where you're like, I want to be there, I should be there, I should be at the British Juniors, I should be at the World Juniors while you're in the States at Brooks. You
know, like for every player, obviously I would have liked to see myself play Worlds or the British Open, but you know, like not every person gets everything. And you know, obviously looking back, I have no regrets. I had such an incredible experience at Brooks. Met incredible people, you know. I'm at Penn, which has been an incredible experience for me as well. And you know, I'm still playing squash pretty competitively. I got to where I want to be in terms of squash and won the U.S. Open, made it to finals of individuals. So I think I'm right there with the guys that didn't really take that route. But no, absolutely no regrets.
No regrets.
I think if I had stayed in Egypt, I would have probably, you know, gotten to where I am now faster. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's a lot more things important than just squash, you know? Like, for me, academics was always a priority. And, you know, my experience here in the U.S. in the last 6 years has been amazing, and I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, so was Penn the first pick for you while you were looking at the college search? Or did you also, I mean, it seems from what you've been saying right now, college squash route was the obvious. But do you have other options that you were considering as well?
Yeah, when I was at Brooks, I looked at all Ivies pretty much, and even Trinity. I looked at the top college schools for squash, and you know, everything worked out really well with Penn. Gilly's a great guy, he's great at recruiting. He drove up to Brooks, and we talked about the program, and my brother was also moving to Philly, so everything seemed to work out to Penn, and I just loved how the program is just always looking for ways to improve, whether building new facilities, hiring new coaches, or recruiting top guys from around the world, and everything just fell into place with Penn. So
got it. So what's the status for this year for the 2021 season, 2022? It's your senior year now, so it's your final year before you're going professional. If I may, what number are you playing as of now?
Yeah, Andrew and I played last week. I lost in 5 games. We played a brutal 5-gamer, but so for the start of the season, I'll be playing 2. But Gary mentioned we're going to play a few times this season, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Yeah. So I think a couple people were actually curious about your dynamic with him, considering you guys are both incredible players, and how you managed to be, figure out the dynamic between, wanting the best for each other, but also, your individual aspirations, and obviously you'd want to be playing at the top of the ladder. So how do you manage?
At the end of the day, Andrew and I play on the same team, right? Like we meet together every year as a team, and the obvious goals for us this season is to win Ivies and to win nationals. We haven't really discussed individual goals, and obviously both of us want to do really well, and we work hard every day. So the main goal for both of us is to win nationals and to win Ivies, and at the end of the day, we play on the same team. Whether I play one or he plays one, it doesn't matter.
Got it. So I want to get into you had a incredible sophomore campaign, which I thought you played phenomenally the entire year. I mean, I thought you played phenomenally every year from freshman, sophomore, and hopefully this year as well. But so I want to talk to you about the individuals finals against Marwan. That was a big match, and it was funny considering how many times you guys played throughout the season. I think you guys played, from what I looked up, 3 times, plus the PBI event, and also Ivy scrimmages that year. So yeah, just tell us how you were feeling before going into the match, the game plan during, and how you were feeling after.
It seems just like it's such a long time ago, sophomore year,
Yeah.
and it's been a while, but I've played, like you said, Marwan so many times in my life. Even, during college and also during our junior careers, we played so many times in Egypt, and playing individuals, I always knew it was going to be a tough match. Pre-match, I was very excited. It was a tough draw. It had a lot of players, so a lot of good players. So to make it to the finals was, it was an amazing feeling, especially because it was at home.
Yeah.
I always knew it was going to be tough going in. We played a long. I think it was close to a 2-hour match.
Yeah, it was.
I fell short in the 5th, which was pretty tough at home. But it was a good run, and hopefully this year we're going to get a chance to play more matches. Actually,
Gotcha.
The funny thing after this match is that COVID hit, and that was the last time I stepped on court for 6 months after. So. You
didn't play during COVID?
That was right before spring break, and we didn't get a chance to play after that. So that was the last time I'd stepped on court in a while. So it was pretty tough to recover from that. But I definitely learned.
No, I remember going to that tournament, and then I had a little cold with me, and then part of me was like, I might be responsible for spreading COVID at this entire Penn facility, because I remember I was getting a couple looks every time I did a little sneeze on the side, because I remember it was like, okay, it's kind of getting sensitive now. But
yeah, it was scary times for sure.
Yeah, how would you manage COVID? So you just told me that you didn't play for 6 months. Was that good for you, or did you just readjust how you're thinking about squash?
Yeah, it was kind of an emotional roller coaster then, never in my life have I taken such a long break from squash. I don't even remember a time before that where I've taken more than 3 weeks off or 2 weeks off from squash. So it was really hard going from playing every day, competing every day, looking for ways to improve and whatnot, to just not playing at all. So it was definitely tough. I tried as much as I can to stay motivated. Right around then, I was, especially finishing on a high note at individuals, I was so, had a good season, looking forward to playing, and I was actually supposed to play Laguna then, before it got canceled. So that Laguna was in April. This tournament was in March, so I had just a few weeks to get ready for that. So I tried to keep myself motivated. I tried to stay in shape, and I watched a lot of squash, and actually it ended up being good. I took some time off from the game, saw how I can improve, and it makes me grateful to be back on court again.
So when did you start jumping back on training once COVID was kind of dialing down? And you were always in Philly at this time?
I stayed in Philly for the whole summer and leading up to Penn. The first chance I got to play, I used that opportunity. There was a Lifetime Open nearby, and one of our teammates, Sham Gambier, had a membership there, so we played a few times a week, and then I slowly worked my way back into it.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but for the goals for this season, obviously winning the Ivies for you guys, and Penn's looking really strong. I'm excited to follow along. And I know you didn't touch upon it much, but obviously I'm sure individuals is also a huge thing for you. Kind of asked Victor the same question here, but I'm curious to see your top 5 picks for the best college squash players that you think are the toughest to play against.
Wow. I mean,
putting you on the spot.
College squash is just full of really good players. From Yusuf Ibrahim for sure. I mean, he's world number 17. He's been killing it on tour.
Yeah.
Victor is obviously another one. Andrew Douglas, he's on my team, and Marwan, Ali Hussein, Miko. There's so many top guys, and I haven't played Miko before. I've only played Yusuf Ibrahim once in practice, but these guys are pretty dangerous to play, I would say.
So Victor mentioned something really cool about Yusuf. He was talking about how, I mean, he said Yusuf's a great player, but he was curious to see how he's going to handle the higher tins.
Yeah.
That kind of caught me off guard. That's not something, I'm not a professional player, so that's not something I'm thinking about, but do you feel like that's a huge difference?
100%. I was actually, during last year, I played a lot with Amanda at the Racket Club of Philly, and we would always talk about the high tin versus the low tin. I think it's something that the CSA should consider changing soon. Like the game is moving towards the low tin. I think after our juniors career, we're ready to play low tin squash. I think it encourages, it makes the game more exciting. It encourages creativity. I think, and also, like, if you look at how many players in college squash go and play professionally, and how many are playing professionally right now, I think we should kind of, have college squash sort of be the gateway to professional squash, and starting with the low 10 can be, or adding the low 10 can even help the players.
So, to the average person, what is the biggest difference between the high 10 and low 10?
Well, the high 10 is 19 inches, and the low 10 is 17 inches, I think. And I think it makes a big difference. It makes the rallies shorter. It encourages the players to go short when you hit the 10 less, just because it's it's lower.
Yeah.
It encourages creative players like Yusuf to go for nicks, and a lot of skill is involved in that.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of reframe that question. Give me like 3 players that, just in terms of their style of play, that you dislike playing the most.
Dislike playing the most in college squash?
Yeah.
Matthias Knudsen. Matthias is so unpredictable, and every time I hop on court with him, it's different than the one before. So he's a very dangerous player to play. There's not one particular style of play that I don't like playing against. I think one of the good things about my game is that I adjust to different styles of play. But sometimes when you play players like Matthias or Yusuf, and they play unexpected shots, and they go short and make it unpredictable, that's when it's hardest to play, because you can't really put a game plan to stop these crazy shots.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty known for your touch. Would you say you're kind of a touch-based player or more attritional?
I think it's a mix of both. I grew up playing in Egypt, and that style of play is encouraged. But I'm also into playing to the back and playing a patient game, and mixing in the touch, because you have to I mean, I think I have a good touch, and it's important to do, to use what you're good at.
Yeah, no, for sure. Moving on, that you've made it no secret that you are going professional after. And I was reading an article, and it seemed your approach was a little different. You were really meticulous with how you're going about it. So you took from the beginning of the year to kind of try out a full-time professional. And if you want to tell us a little bit about how you managed to do that.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to play squash professionally. Growing up as a kid, that's the one thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Especially when I was young, I was surrounded by some of the best squash players in the world. So when you see them right there, you're like, wow, maybe one day I can be like you guys. And after I got the opportunity to play Laguna and saw that I can compete with some of the best players in the world, and I was like, why not give it a shot? And last summer, I went home. I took it seriously. I dedicated the whole summer to live as a professional squash player. I started working with a strength and conditioning coach. I would train like 3 to 4 sessions a day. I traveled around, played tournaments, and I don't know, it was a great experience. And I definitely want to, after graduating, just start hopping on tour and see where it takes me.
What's the difference? What's the difference between your training right now and then, obviously, like how intensely do you train as of now? Because I know you're also a student.
Yeah, I mean, it's different because, this summer all I had to do was train. And I would wake up and have a good breakfast, go to the weight room, train, get lunch, do my solo and a feeding session. I would come back, rest, stretch, and come back and match play at night or condition games. But now, at Penn, you're a full-time student and you have commitments and you have to balance your life between, playing for yourself, playing for the team, but also being a full-time student. So I think it's a lot different. And for me, it hasn't been easy, the transition of going from like playing fully professionally to come back and doing 1 or 2 sessions a day. But at the end of the day, I'm playing for Penn, and I have 1 more year left, and I just have to find a way to stay fit and give everything to the team, and then see what I have to do for myself after.
Gotcha. So where are you going to be after? Have you thought about that? Are you going to go back to Egypt?
I really enjoyed my training last summer and how I had everything laid out. I'm lucky, as I said, my brother lives in Philly as well. So I kind of have 2 homes, one in Egypt and one in Philly, and I'll always have Penn. So I think I'm going to be in between Egypt and Philly.
So if you were in Philly, you'd be kind of basing yourself around Penn and Gilly Lane as your coach? Would you say?
I think so. I mean, like, Gilly Lane's been my coach for the last 4 years, and he's always going to be there to support me. I mean, he's been one of the most supporting people in my life, and he's made it clear that he's always going to be there for me, whether I'm at Penn or when I graduate, and definitely when I'm in Philly, I'll definitely be working with him. Even when I'm in Egypt, I'll be working for him. Like, I know Gilly's always going to be there for me, but it's good to have a lot of players coming now and moving into Philly at the new center, and there's always going to be the Penn squash team, and my brother as well. He was a great player himself, so I always come back to my brother for squash advice and drill ideas and strategies and what have you.
Got it. Do you have goals for being a professional? Do you foresee yourself doing this for a long time, or are you kind of more so, I want to try it out for a couple of years and then maybe try something new? Where are you at with that?
Well, like I said, I grew up around some of the best squash players in the world, and this summer I trained with some of the best squash players in the world, and the goal for me is to be one of the best squash players in the world, and I don't see myself doing it just for a year or 2 until I'm tired of it. I see myself just going all the way and being the best squash player I can be. I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but I think I'm ready to put in the work, and I'm ready to give it a shot. And I think in the last couple of tournaments, I proved to myself that I can beat some of the top guys out there, and I just have to keep training and learning and believing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've had definitely good results recently. You've made it to semis and the finals, both. What is there a particular reason why you're not playing any tournaments right now? I didn't see your name in the PBI event, or there's the Houston Open right now happening. There's a tournament going on.
So I mean, I had a pretty brutal summer of training, and I played a couple of tournaments in September. And again, I'm a full-time student at Penn, and I'm playing for the Penn squash team, and we have the college season coming up. So I have to give my body a little rest. And in the last 3 weeks, I've been kind of taking it a little easy, just to make sure that I'm recovered and ready for a long season ahead. I mean, starting next weekend, we're going to have almost a match or two every weekend, so I have to be smart of how I'm training, smart of how I'm using my body, because after Penn as well, I'm going to be playing tournaments. So, yeah, I chose to take this weekend off.
Yeah, fair enough. Wait, I want to go into the Excel thing that I saw on the article. What were you putting in the Excel sheet? Like, how specific? And I also know you wear the Whoop strap, right? Is that something that you use as data collection as well?
Yeah, 100%. It's less about the Whoop and more about, I've been trying to plan every session ahead and document my training. Like before every session, I would go in and see what the plan is for the session and what I want to work on. And then I would track it and put it on Excel, not in a very complex way or anything. I would just have everything on my Excel so I can go back and see what worked and what didn't. And I think I've been improving just by tracking how I've been doing.
Yeah.
I think it's important to look back and see how you can improve and what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And I think it's important for people to start documenting their training. At least it was useful for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think a lot of players are doing that, so definitely a new approach. But yeah, I'm actually gonna kind of shifting gears here. I wanted to ask you a question. Why'd you make the other professional squash Instagram account?
Yeah, so I remember one of my friends was joking around. He was like, "We're tired of you posting all your squash stuff on your own account." And I'm always going to be posting squash stuff because it's my life. So I wanted to separate my personal account from my squash journey. I was like, "Hey guys, I'm here. I decided to play professionally. If you want to follow this part of my life, you're more than welcome to join me."
Yeah.
And I think I need to start getting my name out there, promoting myself, because that's a big part of playing professionally as well. You have to build a brand name for yourself. So, I was just messing around, gave it a shot, and I think I'm going to stick with it.
No, okay, that's great. I wanted to talk to you about this because I have a question. Do you think players are obligated for the growth of the sport to be promoting themselves through social media platforms like this? Because with squash right now, I feel it is very inconsistent. I feel some players are doing it very well, like Amanda Soapy and Paul Cole. And there are other players who really aren't on social media. And in the fan perspective, I don't know. I don't know if it's hindering the growth of the sport. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think anyone should be obligated to do anything. I mean, I think some players can choose to be out there, and Amanda's is very present on social media. Other players like Joel Macon, for example, is not present. And
no, yeah, his Instagram looks like a job.
I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way of doing something. I think it's a personal choice, and I don't think. I mean, the players are obviously, responsible of. Actually, I don't. I mean, obviously the players want to grow the sport, but it's not their responsibility to put their life out there for people. I just think social media helps with exposure. It helps with growing the game. It helps, for people to see you, maybe for sponsors even to see you. But I don't think any player should be obligated to take their squash life on social media.
Yeah, no, I just felt that as someone who follows not only squash but made a lot of different other sports, you see. I mean, obviously there's more money involved, so there's a lot of more opportunities to professionally document what you're doing on a daily basis. But I think that does really help with, displaying the personalities of the sport. And squash, you don't find a lot of players. And, the players who do put themselves on social media, they get a stronger following. And people, I do think, are really interested to see, what's happening in Aly's daily life. So, yeah, that's why I was curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've only spent a year on tour, and I'm excited to learn more from the players and get to see what the players are like personally and what their views are on these things. And I myself, I think moving forward, I'm going to start, incorporating social media into my life and learning more on how I can self-promote myself on social media, because I think it's an area where, it can be used in many positive ways for myself and for the sport.
So, Aly, do you watch a lot of squash? Are you a huge fan of watching squash
Yeah.
and following along?
Definitely such a squash fan.
What are your thoughts of what's happening these days? Anything that's caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, you see Mustafa Assal working his way up the rankings and sort of beating the top guys. There's a lot of controversy going on that.
What are your thoughts on it? Do you think he's good for the sport, or because he's getting definitely both sides of it? Some people love him. Some people are saying he's destroying the sport.
I don't know if he's destroying the sport. I mean, the fact that we're all talking about him is probably good for the sport. I think he's one of the best squash players in the world right now. He's doing crazy things. I don't know, as long as he's not disrespectful to the other players, and I think he can do. I mean, he's allowed to do whatever he wants as long as it's within, as long as he's respecting the other players. And I think, I mean, if you look at his social media accounts, he has the most followers out of any of the other players. So maybe it is good for the sport. Who knows? But I have no problem with it whatsoever as long as he's respecting the players, especially the older guys.
Do you think there are times where he's not being respectful?
I mean, if you look at matches with Mustafa Assal, it's probably the one that has the most arguing and the most blocking and the most video review calls, and it seems like all his matches are stuff's happening, but I don't know if it's him or the way he plays, but I mean, some players get offended by celebrations, some people get offended by celebrations because it's not really what we're used to seeing on squash TV, but it's not necessarily wrong. There's no right or wrong. But some people find it disrespectful the way he celebrates. And
what are your thoughts on the celebration? I
don't mind it as long as he's not mocking anybody or anything. I think it's fine. Yeah, that's not how I would personally do it myself, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I'd love to see you rip up your shirt and just throw it in the crowd once you win a match. That's but it's definitely interesting, and I think certain players have spoken up about him as well. I think Tarek Momin outwardly spoke about him. I don't know if a lot of people read it, but there was an article about it, how he didn't want his name being associated with him. But in recent matches, it seems they've kind of cleared it up. Yeah,
I mean, it's difficult for a player like Tarek. I mean, he's a lot older than Mustafa. I think they both grew up in the same club, so I'm sure it's mentally difficult for both of them to play each other, and I'm sure conflicts happen on and off the court, but it seems like in the last couple of matches they cleared it up. So
so Victor was saying one of the issues he's had with the tour right now was refereeing. Do you think that is a substantial issue that needs to be addressed?
It's definitely an area where the PSA can improve. If you look at the U.S. Open, I mean, that's the last tournament, I think. No, there was something else. There was Qatar.
Qatar.
I remember going to the center and watching the U.S. Open, and it seemed like every call, it's just the calls are inconsistent. A player's asking for a let, the ref is giving a no let, the video reviews, the video review referee is giving a stroke, and everybody else is just like, what is going on? And it's getting to the point where it's confusing to know what the calls are. Someone would ask for something, and you would just have no idea as a player and as a spectator. Like, you just don't know what the call is just because it's just so inconsistent. So I think when it comes to reffing, I think that's an area where the PSA can improve, just to develop some consistencies.
So how do you feel about? I guess I'm going way back now back to the college squash topic, but there have been more official reffing matches for you guys, especially in the upper top tier universities. But what are your thoughts? Do you think it should always be like that, where there needs to be an unbiased refereeing? Because obviously there's also, you're going to be reffing matches for your own school. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that needs to be fixed?
Well, the way it's been done in the past is that, like, for most matches, one player of each team will ref the match, and it depends if you're home or away. Like, I'm not sure how it is. I think if you're home, you ref.
It's like split evenly.
It's split evenly, or you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I mean, in the past we haven't had like crazy issues with reffing, and usually at nationals we get professional refs because that's probably when it matters most, and it's usually coaches put it under control. I mean, there's not one team that's like obviously screwing the other team. Sometimes, the coaches tell us to be as fair as possible, and obviously sometimes it gets to a situation where it's a 50-50 and some people favor their own teams naturally, but I don't think it's a huge issue where a lot of money should be invested in reffing going all around college matches, But yeah, I mean, it's good to have official refs for sure at nationals, but I don't think it's necessary to have at every college match.
Just continuing on the ref topic, obviously you're going professional. How would you want changes to be? Just, do you want them to like always be consistent? Like, do you think that they need to redo the whole system of how they go about it? How would you want to see this change happen?
Well, right now it just seems to be extremely just inconsistent. I mean, reffing itself is a really difficult job. When I ref myself, I get stressed. I know how hard it is. So, a lot of people criticize the refs, but it's not always the refs' fault. It's just like the way it is. But I think for the refs to sit together and say if this happens, this is going to be a let. It doesn't have to be a let for this person. And if somebody else does it, it's a stroke. Or if somebody else does it, it's a no let. Like you see, there are a lot of biases when it comes to players in certain situations. So I think that needs to change because it creates a lot of inconsistencies.
Well, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. So that's it for today's episode, folks. And hopefully I can have Aly back on in the future as well. Maybe after one of the big matches after his college squash matches, I can just have him on quickly and get his thoughts. But just want to say thank you so much for jumping on with this call with me.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.